Hello, beautiful souls. How have you been? So, it's yet another sweltering day here in Sri Lanka. The heat wave has been pretty harsh this time. And I'm seated in my garden right under the sun. you know, um, and a lot of people are complaining these days about the heat, and so am I. And I was thinking, oh, no, I have to do this recording in this heat. But then, I'm seated here just, yeah, witnessing everything right now. These blue skies and the luscious greenery. And I hear the chirping of the birds. And there is this soft breeze that I can feel on my skin, the rustling of leaves. Yeah, and I'm surrounded by, guess what? Mangoes. It's the mango season here in Sri Lanka. And I'm seated right under this gorgeous mango tree, full of its fruit. So it's a very bounteous mango season. And I feel so blessed, actually, so grateful for this abundance. And yes, I'm just being present to all that I can experience right here, right now. I feel extremely grateful, and I feel this beautiful grounding presence within me. You know. And that's what we are going to talk about today, grounding. You know, Everything to do with grounding. So, welcome to my channel, Breathe and Balance, once again. To those of you who are new, I'm Chathuri Jayasooriya. I'm a psychospiritual practitioner based here in Sri Lanka. And here on this channel, we speak about a lot of things related to, healing and magic and metaphysics and self-growth and evolution, the expansion of our consciousness, and how we can come back to that state of balance, and back to our center, back home to who we truly are. So today, as I promised, those of you who had seen my intro video to Ground with Chathuri live every Sunday, that's my new program, which I'm going to launch tomorrow, 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time, Sri Lankan time, and there I mentioned that I'm going to do a very comprehensive video on grounding, covering, various aspects of what grounding means, its significance, and how to do grounding, like various different methods, and the benefits, and so on. So it might be a slightly longer video. Let's see how it goes, right? But I felt like it's really, really important to do this video because grounding is one of the most important things in my experience that we can do, especially in order to regain that balance and come back to our center, especially in today's time, where we tend to be very scattered and life tends to be quite chaotic, right? And it's so easy to lose that groundedness, that centeredness. So I'm very passionate about this topic, especially because of how much I have benefited from grounding. And my understanding of grounding also developed over time, and it keeps evolving and deepening, you know. So today I would like to share whatever, the understanding that I have as of now. And we can keep adding to it, as we progress. So let's start with what is actually grounding. So different people have slightly different understandings of what grounding means, and there's the more popularized understanding or definition and practices, more popular practices associated with grounding, such as, grounding meditations, for example, connecting with Mother Earth. But it can be quite nuanced. I'm really sorry about the sun falling right onto my face. I tried to choose a spot where it's not falling right onto my face, but of course, the sun keeps shifting. Unfortunately, I can't shift along with it because it's going to interrupt the video. So I hope you're not too disturbed, right? Okay. So coming back to, what is actually grounding? What does it mean? So overall, grounding is an energy of stability, if I'm to use an energetic perspective or point of view, right? So when we say somebody is very grounded, it kind of indicates like a stable presence. There is a stabilizing energy in the person, or it could be a thing or a place or whatever it may be, right? It could just be an experience, So grounding is a very stabilizing presence, energy, and experience. To put it very succinctly, to, give you that essence of what grounding means, right? And usually, when we talk about grounding, we refer to Earth, Mother Earth, and she has a very stabilizing, solid presence, very solid, right? When you touch Earth and when you think about Earth, when you connect with Earth, it really brings you back down onto the ground, into that stable, solid presence. That's what Earth is associated with, solidness or solidity. So that's the overall essence of the energy of grounding. But going beyond that, if we are to expand, this stabilizing, grounding energy or presence can be experienced mainly in 4 different ways across the 4 main bodies that every human being has, which is the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual or energetic bodies, right? So I will go through each one of them briefly, along with what it really means, so like what it feels like in each of these bodies, what it looks like, feels like, and some of the techniques that we use in order to gain that grounding experience in each of these bodies. So firstly, there's the physical body, right? And the physical body is really important when it comes to grounding, because the physical body is what is directly connected to Earth. It's in the physical realm. That's why we call it physical, right? And Earth is the physical realm, 3-dimensional physical realm. And we have a physical body as an incarnate being here on Earth, right? And it's through the physical body and the 5 senses associated with the physical body, which is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling, the touch, that we experience the three-dimensional physical reality. Okay? So this vessel that we call the body, or this instrument, is really important. The most important grounding instrument that we have as humans. Okay? And very interestingly, it is this very physical body that a lot of us try to escape, especially if you are an empath or a very highly sensitive person, starseed, whatever terminology you are familiar or comfortable with. Some of us find it very difficult to stay present in the body because it's a very dense energetic field, the physical realm, including the body, and sometimes spirit find it very constricting, to be contained in a physical body. And this is why we often escape into the spiritual realm, and sometimes we engage in a lot of fantasy, or we are in our headspace with a lot of thoughts, which can be quite detrimental, especially when we are speaking of balance, right? So we can often lose that balance when we are not in touch with or fully present in our physical body. And it can often happen due to the pain and the discomfort that we feel, when we are occupying this body. And, the body gets sick, and, it is very sensitive to energies, and it can feel uncomfortable a lot of the time, right? So there is that urge sometimes to, escape or come out of the body, and, or as we say, pop out of the body, and just hang in with spirit, right? But it is very, very important that we come back to our body and ground, in order to gain that balance between the physical and the spiritual. And it is when we are truly connected with, attuned to, and present in our physical body, that we can be grounded in the here and the now, or this present moment. And why is that important? Now, this is a very important element when it comes to grounding and what it means. So the next most important definition, or the meaning I would give to grounding, is to be present in the here and the now, right? Because every moment that the mind pulls us into the past or the future, or keep us stuck in rumination, we are not in the here and the now. And a lot of suffering is created when we occupy the spaces of the past or the future or fantasy, or rumination. The mind spinning all kinds of stories, and it's usually not a very pleasant stories. It tends to spin stories of, unworthiness and doubt and fear, especially, and judgment, and so on and so forth, to keep us, limited and stuck, and unevolved, unconscious. I talk about a lot of these in different ways in my videos, so please feel free to watch some of them if you are interested. But the point here is that freedom can be found only in the here and the now, right? And as I always say, all possibilities and healing exist in the here and the now only. And as we all know, life exists only in the here and the now, not in the past, which is just a memory, not in the future, which is only a fantasy or a dream. Life is experienced in the here and the now. And it's when we are in the here and the now, we feel that stabilizing, grounding presence. And in order to gain that grounding presence, we need to be here in the body. And the body is what really helps us stay anchored in the here and the now. And it's actually the body and the breath. The breath is also very powerful. And in this discourse, I will consider it as a part of our physical experience, because without the breath, actually, for me, breath is spirit. It's a precious life force energy. It's how spirit or the divine makes itself known and is present every moment in our lives, and it keeps replenishing and nurturing this physical body, which we absolutely need in order to navigate, this experience that we call life here on earth, right? So it's the breath that anchors us into our body, and the body that anchors us into the here and the now, this present moment. Okay, so this is why a lot of the time, like mindfulness-based practices focus on the breath and the body. We always try to bring ourselves back into the body, the senses, whatever we sense and feel in the body, to witness and recognize and observe whatever is rising and falling in the body, just like how the breath rises and falls. I'm sure you would have experienced some form of meditation based on mindfulness and the body. And it's always the breath and the body that brings us into this present moment and keeps us anchored. Every time the mind gets scattered and takes us in all different directions, breathe and come back to the body, and you feel grounded. Okay, so so there are different techniques that we use, including mindfulness-based exercises, to bring ourselves into the body and experience grounding in and through the body. And one of the most well-known and most effective techniques is known as earthing. You would have heard this term. Or grounding, earthing are quite synonymously used, I would say. So that just means like walking on earth or grass, and even lying down on grass, because I myself experience, like I used to walk all the time, very intentionally for grounding purposes. But one day, due to certain circumstances, I lied down on grass, and I'm telling you, that was a time when my mind was like really full of thoughts, and I was unable to really ground myself due to various reasons. And just lying down here on this garden for half an hour immediately took me out of that state into a very calm nervous system. It really calmed and soothed my, nervous system, and brought me into a space of, a tranquility. So it's very, very powerful. So all you need to do is to lie down on grass, like facing the sun as well, for best effect. But if you're walking, just make sure you're walking barefoot, of course, because there are those electrolytes, that the body absorbs from the energy of Mother Earth. And, Mother Earth has this beautiful electromagnetic field, that we can tap into any moment by walking, on Earth. And basically allowing our bodies to touch the body of Mother Earth, right? And she's always so willing, just like any mother, to pour her love to us. All we need to do is to just request her, and connect with her intentionally. So try that. And just as, with anything, it requires a practice. So the more regular that you do this, the more effective it would be. And of course, there are other methods like, even swimming and gardening and body-based exercises like yoga, and any other kind of like somatic work that works with the physical body would be helpful for grounding. Um, and there is also these earthing blankets that I've heard of, that some people use. So of course, you can Google more about that. I've just heard about it, I have not used it, so I can't recommend it as such, but I know it's out there. So that's about how we ground in and through our physical body. And the next one is mental and emotional bodies, right? So how is grounded connected to our mental and emotional bodies? Because this is the two bodies that interfere a lot in being present and grounded and centered and balanced and all of those things, because the mind creates the abyss, as I always say, through through all the thoughts and the stories that it constantly spins, like it's on overload, like it's overworking all the time, right? And it's overused, I would say, the mental body. And it creates emotion, so energy in motion. You simply put, like, you think a happy thought, you would feel a happy emotion. And if you think an angry thought, you feel anger, and so on, right? So thoughts always precede emotion. And emotional body, is directly connected with our nervous system, parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems and so on. Like, I won't go into detail here, but all these things are connected. So the nervous system is, of course, in the body, but the emotions that are given birth to by our thoughts, then ultimately seep into our physical body through the nervous system, and ultimately we feel it as a sensation in the body. Think about, how you feel whenever you feel a particular emotion, anger or happiness, grief, whatever. You feel it as a sensation in some part of the body, right? And the body keeps the score. So whatever we don't process, of course, gets stored in the body and can manifest as all kinds of, different illnesses, conditions, when in imbalanced. So when we have an overactive mental body and an overstimulated emotional body, it always distracts us from the present moment and from stability, because it's all over the place. It's very irregulated, dispersed, and we get drowned in these experiences created by the mind and our hearts, so the emotional body. And that ultimately prevents us from staying grounded, balanced, and centered. And it certainly prevents us from being in the moment, right? And you know how strong and powerful emotional charge can be. Sometimes pulls us here and drives us there, right? It creates all this churning inside and storms, and then you're driven to act in a particular way. Before you know, like, you're lost basically, in the story and in all these emotions, a sea of emotions and waves after waves hitting you, and you lose control basically. very ungrounded. Yeah, so in order to prevent that and actually wield our mental and emotional bodies and regulate our nervous system, and returning to our center and to the present moment, we can adapt mindfulness-based meditation techniques, breathing techniques. Breath work is amazing for this purpose. And even techniques like emotional freedom techniques, EFT tapping, all of these are techniques that I practice and use with my clients as well. So there are plenty of different techniques, but once again, what matters is consistency. There needs to be a regular practice in order to experience the benefits, of any of these techniques. So that's about grounding in relation to the mental and emotional bodies, which I feel is really, really important, because that's kind of like what lies between the physical and the spiritual, if I may put it that way, because that's what creates that very turbulent, disturbing, uncomfortable energy, and creates that pain body that comes between the physical and the spiritual, and what often prevents us from connecting to our bodies and our spirit, actually. So I would say from all the four bodies, the mental and the emotional play a very significant role in terms of ungrounding us, and a lot of work needs to be done in those two bodies to bring ourselves back into a state of grounding and a state of balance. Okay. Yeah, so now let's move on to our spiritual or energetic bodies. There are many, many energetic bodies, but overall I just refer to it as our spiritual body. So when we talk about our spiritual body, we talk about, our chakras and our auric field, so on. I mean, those are the more popular words that you may identify with, but it's a huge body containing a lot of information about not only this lifetime, but all our different past, present, future, parallel lives, and, all the different dimensions we exist, so on. So that's the most mysterious space, from the four bodies, I would say, and the most unknown. There's still a lot to be discovered there, I think, and a lot of it cannot be still understood by our human minds, and not meant to as well, I believe, because that is where we need to use our intuition, or the right hemisphere of our brain, and the left hemisphere, which is meant for analyzing, logic, reasoning, so on, cannot be and is not meant to be used to understand these concepts that are meant to be understood by the intuitive mind. Okay. And I think it's really important for us to understand this as well, in this particular discourse as well, because we're trying to understand, okay, now how is grounding connected to the spiritual or energetic bodies, right? So I think the simplest way for us to understand this connection is to know that everything is energy, whether we perceive it through the five senses in the physical reality or not. Energy is everywhere, and everything is energy. And not all forms of energy can be perceived with the five senses. That's the metaphysical body that goes beyond the physical body and physical reality, right? So it can be sensed and perceived in other ways. But because everything is energy, energy can communicate with each other. This is a really important thing for us to understand here, because, when we talk about spirit or the divine, people may understand it in so many different ways and use different terminology like God or goddess or one consciousness, quantum field, universe, 0 point, whatever. Like, there are so many different terms used to refer to this highest source of unconditional love and wisdom, as I put it. And that divine force in which our higher self also forms a part, as I believe, communicates with us all the time, right? Whether we are listening or not, the soul, as I now refer to it, or the greater consciousness, the divine is constantly communicating with each and every one of us, guiding us, right? And when we connect to our spirit, basically, we call it your higher self, the divine or whatever, when we are connected with that part of ourselves, that energy or that force helps us connect with absolutely everything else. And why is this important or relevant in terms of grounding is that this particular energetic field or method of connecting, which is the most powerful, spirit is the most powerful, it helps us connect with Mother Earth and her spirit as well. So it's kind of like the spirit of everything is in the oneness and can communicate with each other, right? It goes beyond reasoning and the rational mind and any kind of analysis. It transcends mind, okay? And it transcends even the physical body and can directly communicate with energy fields, right? So using this capacity that all of us have, we can connect with the energy field of Mother Earth and connect to her energy field and her healing energies and that grounding presence that she has. Okay, and there are certain methods that we use, like the grounding code, which is something that I share in the Ground with Chathuri program that I'm going to launch tomorrow. So if you're interested, please join me. That's an intuitive energy healing technique, which is very, very powerful, and using which we can connect with the heart and soul of Mother Earth, her energy, her healing energy, and through which we can release toxic, negative energies that are within us, that we are holding on to in our physical, mental, emotional bodies, and just release it, for her to transmute. I mean, these are like amazing magical techniques, when you start practicing it, you will realize yourself. Sometimes people ask me, like, is it that simple? And I say, yeah, it is, because we have been conditioned, programmed to believe that in order for something to be effective, it has to be difficult, challenging. You have to, work hard to achieve something, right? That somehow this hardness have been programmed into the human mind. Because we have to suffer, but not necessarily. There are certain energy-based techniques through which we can really ground ourselves, literally, into the stabilizing energy of Mother Earth, and also receive her energy, which can ground us even further, right? So it really anchors us into her energy, her presence. So yeah, I mean, many of you would be familiar with certain meditation techniques, like roots stemming from the soles of our feet, going deep into Mother Earth, and so on. That's a very popular meditation. So there are many such meditation techniques that help us, energetically connect with the energy of Mother Earth, and that helps us ground. Okay, so I think I have at least briefly touched on the different ways in which we can ground ourselves through our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual or energetic bodies in order to experience stability, presence, centeredness, and ultimately balance within. So I hope that by now you have received a fair understanding of what grounding means. So if I'm to add a little bit more to our understanding of what grounding means, it is also used in the context of being practical, pragmatic, or realistic. This is often embedded in our languaging itself. So you would have heard people say, oh, her head is too much in the clouds. You should come back to earth. When somebody's fantasizing too much or having unrealistic expectations or ambitions, that's the context in which this often used, I believe. I think once again, it at its core refers to that stability, solidity, like in terms of putting plans into action, without just ideating, like pulling that energy and anchoring it on the ground in terms of executing plans, right? So that is one element or attribute of grounding, and energetically that is also very much connected to earth-based chakra, especially a root chakra, right? And when this is in imbalance, only like sometimes we find ourselves just fantasizing or ideating and unable to really put it into practice. And this is one place where a lot of people get stuck and unable to realize their dreams. So that's an issue with grounding, actually. And actually points to why grounding is so important. So it's about grounding dreams into reality. All right. And another context in which grounding is used in terms of humility. And this is because an egoistic person, or ego, which is the opposite of humility, right? Or being arrogant, basically is when somebody is too much in the head, as we say, right? Or has a very high estimation of oneself and is being in his ego, in the mind, all referring to up here. So that is a state of ungroundedness, and which is why humility is very grounding. It's an understanding of who I am and being grounded in one's truth. And that's the third element that I wanted to bring in. So these are kind of interconnected. I think all these three are actually interconnected. So it's like being grounded in one's truth. Who am I? That connection with one's self-concept. Who am I? What do I believe in? What are my values? What is, my truth? What do I believe in? What is my authentic self, basically? And I talk about this a lot on my videos. So this authentic self tends to be covered a lot with the masks that we learn to wear in the process of socialization or conditioning, programming, ever since we are born. and we turn into a very performative self in order to belong, to be loved, so on, right? And we lose sight of our authentic self. And this is very ungrounded, because we are not connected to who I am truly, beneath this ego self or ego personality. Who am I truly? And it's at this point that we start to be really influenced by other people, and we crumble down a lot, and we get really affected by other people and external situations and so on, when we are not very solidly grounded in our own truth and our authentic self, right? I would really urge you to listen to some of my other videos where I talk about, connecting to one's truth and authentic self and so on, because these are like very deep concepts. And we really need a deeper understanding in order to ground ourselves in our truth. And because when we are not grounded very solidly, it can create a lot of issues, in all aspects of our lives, especially in our relationships, in our relational experiences, because we constantly start seeking validation and create a lot of hurt and pain within us when we don't receive that, and it creates expectations, judgments, so on and so forth. It creates a lot of entanglements, and we lose our freedom, our liberation. So when we are grounded in our truth, we are like this big oak tree. We don't fall due to any storm. We can hold our ground because our roots are very strong and firmly grounded. It goes deep into Mother Earth. And we can hold space for ourselves. We can self-regulate, so on, and thereby stay very present and grounded and balanced. Right? And that also creates that humility within us when we have that regulated, calm, a nervous system in us, and don't have a need to compare ourselves with anybody else, or a need to prove ourselves and so on. We can just simply be ourselves, and humility comes automatically as a result. We don't need to lean on to or rely on our ego, to feel worthy. I think that's it. It's that sense of worthiness that is created when we are connected to our authentic self and the divinity in that authentic self. When we realize that we are divine beings, regardless of whatever the ego personality and the story of our life and so on. And I think that is the most grounding energy that we can ever, wish for and can truly embody. Being grounded in one's authentic self, in that divine presence and truth. I mean, that's the ultimate, I think, the goal. But still a very important attribute of grounding. And I would say even a goal of grounding. Somehow I feel it's really embedded, in this whole concept of grounding as well. So I hope that, what I shared so far helped you in gaining a rather nuanced understanding of what grounding means beyond the popular understanding of grounding, and that it would help you ponder a little bit more and delve a little bit deeper into your own experience of grounding. Okay, so let me also briefly share some of the most important benefits of grounding. I mean, there are so many, but I will just mention 13 okay, I had listed down 13 benefits, right, of grounding. So this is in no particular order, just as it flowed into my consciousness. So as I mentioned, the stabilization, the solidity, that energy of being grounded kind of naturally generates. It makes you feel very stable within you and in life. Okay, and it helps us come back to our center instead of being dissipated or distracted, or from states of rumination and things like that. It really helps come back to our center. And it creates that balance. When you're grounded, it helps you reach a space of balance and equanimity, and you will feel it. The more grounded you are, the more balanced you automatically feel in all areas of your life. And it helps you set boundaries. Balance and boundaries go hand in hand because of everything that I mentioned earlier about what grounding means. And when you're especially connected to your authentic self and you really understand yourself, grounded in your truth, it becomes easier to draw and maintain a balance and boundaries with other people and other situations, so on. And it helps you step into neutrality, be in the world, but not of it, as I say. And once again, there's a video you can refer to. So when you're grounded, it automatically helps you reach that state of neutrality as well, as in the process. I would say it's almost like an outcome of being grounded. So you're not really affected by, I'm not saying like, you won't ever be affected by anything. It's not like that. And neutrality is an energy that we can become, and we can often veer off that center and that sense of neutrality, and we keep coming back. Balance, neutrality, equanimity. I mean, these are states that I think we can reach for a while. And as human beings in this particular consciousness, we keep steering off course, and we, fall out of balance and move into other spaces, and then we keep coming back into neutrality and balance and equanimity. And once again, like, it's this dance between different polarities, right? So these are states that we can embody and we can experience, but may not be on a constant basis, and that's perfectly fine, right? Because we are all work in progress. And the next benefit is the lightness that you experience as a result, because you're no longer carrying a burden. When you're grounded, you release everything to Mother Earth, and you can be more relaxed, and you can just be without needing to do or prove yourself all the time, and yeah. And then, of course, the clarity, seeing things as they are, and which is far easier when you're grounded rather than scattered, Yeah, and this is also that point I made about being realistic, seeing things for what they are, being real, rather than being in a fantasy or giving into illusion. Yeah, which is what happens when you are in your headspace a lot. Then, of course, presence. You're always in the moment when you're grounded, and that's that sense of presence. And this is the pathway to oneness as well as joy, is when you are in this moment. I think we can experience very powerful states of being if we are able to stay in this moment. Yeah. People have had like a lot of profound sacred experiences simply with the power of now. Okay, so, and then of course, when we are grounded, we are able to better connect with ourselves and thereby other people. You know, our connection with other people also becomes very grounded and much more compassionate and kind. Yeah. You know. Because we have a different perspective, understanding, sensitivity almost when we are closer to the ground. Yeah, that's why I always say, like, you know, we need more grounded connections, you know, that are anchored rather than connections that, you know, sometimes can feel very exciting and, you know, they can happen very fast and, you know, you're in love with them like in a split second or whatever, but it's like very much in the air. They're not grounded. Yeah. So grounded connection sometimes can even feel like very mundane and sometimes even boring, but you know, may not be very exciting, but much more peaceful and calm, if that's what you prefer, of course. You know, and there is more acceptance, there is more agreement to life as it arises and falls, and therefore much more acceptance rather than resistance. And that brings a lot of peace, you know, into life. And there is much better flow when we are grounded because we are in the present and we are not resisting, we are in acceptance. So there is greater flow to life. And all this brings us into a state of inner peace, which ultimately all of us really long for, this inner peace. And of course, when we have inner peace, you know, our health, all our bodies become much more enhanced. And we can experience a state of wholeness within and without. So I hope you can now understand the significance and the importance of grounding, what it means, how we can achieve it, and the benefits of grounding. I, of course, just touched on the benefits. I can go far deeper, but I think this would suffice to give you like an overall understanding and why it's so important for us to ground in whatever way we can and prefer, right? But I always emphasize it's a practice. It's a day-to-day practice in our lived reality. So we need to come down to earth and anchor this as a practice on earth in our bodies, right? And I would say breathing is the easiest way to ground and immediately come back into your body and regulate your nervous system and anchor in the here and the now. Right? So if you would like to experience more of the magic of grounding, I really would love to invite you to join my new program, Ground with Chathuri, which I offer every Sunday live on this channel, Breathe and Balance, at 9 o'clock Indian Standard Time or Sri Lankan time. And you can convert it to your own time zones, right? So I'm committed to showing up every Sunday because consistency is key, as I always say. So if you join, I mean, this is just for 30 minutes, you know, and you can join even for 15, 10 minutes, whatever, you know, you can afford. But when you do this consistently, trust me, trust the divine, trust yourself, you will experience magic and miracles in your lives gradually as you embody the energy of groundedness. So that's my invitation to you. So if you have any questions or comments, feedback, please feel free to. I would love to see your comments, and please like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who might benefit from this discourse. I really look forward to hearing from you. Please do stay connected, and would love to hear about your experience of grounding as well. And looking forward to connecting with you tomorrow and on every Sunday. Okay, bye for now. Take care.